Coming up on today's show, I put together the San Francisco 49ers perfect offseason plan. But first, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. We're less than 2,000 people away from 80,000 subscribers. And then once we get to 100K, YouTube will send us a plaque and we'll celebrate here on the show. Now, if you're coming across this show for the first time or you haven't hit that sub button yet, this is your go-to spot for Niners coverage every single day, year-round. We cover the latest news, rumors, and analysis. We'll have Niners free agency intel. We'll be all over the 2023 NFL draft to see who the Niners take, and then once they draft those players, we'll give you some scouting breakdowns. We also do live shows, watch parties during the regular season, and we involve you, the faithful. So subscribe to the show and keep it locked here for the 49ers perfect offseason plan. All right, I'm ready to get into it. We're really putting together the plan for the San Francisco 49ers to have the perfect offseason so that they can win that coveted 6th Super Bowl. And it's all presented by Manscaped, the leader in men's grooming products. Join the 7 million men who trust Manscaped by heading to manscaped.com/49ers. And if you use the promo code 49ers, 20% off and free shipping. We'll tell you more about their brand new products coming up later on in the docket. All right, so the 49ers perfect offseason plan. A look at which moves San Francisco can make in-house, externally in free agency, and in the NFL draft to finally break through, get past this hurdle, and win their 6th Super Bowl. Let's start by setting the foundation to see which players on this current roster are going to be 2023 free agents. Quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, defensive back Jimmy Ward, who played safety and cornerback, thus I think improving his value. Samson Ebukam, who's going to have a market. Emmanuel Mosley, who is playing terrific football prior to his ACL injury. Mike McGlinchey, one of the best right tackles on the market. Stay tuned for how much he could get paid. It's pretty wild. Linebacker Azeez Al-Shire. Is he going to follow D'Amico Ryans with the Houston Texans? Robbie Gould, Jake Brendel, Daniel Brunskill, and what a signing to Sean Gibson was. I hope that he comes back on the cheap in free agency to pair up with Talanoa Hufanga and maybe Jimmy Ward. We'll see. Defensive lineman Charles Omenihu, also going to be a free agent. So too is Jordan Willis, Ross Dwelly, Kerry Hyder, Hassan Ridgeway, T.Y. McGill, Tarvarius Moore, who had that interception in the 2019 Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, Tyler Kroft, Josh Johnson, Tabor Pepper, and 3 more. Jason Verrett, Maurice Hurst, and Jordan Matthews, all set to be free agents for San Francisco. So with that, let's also pivot and take a look at the Niners' salary cap situation. The 2023 salary cap in the National Football League going to set a record, the highest that it's ever been, just shy of $225 million. And currently right now, San Francisco has $16.5 million of cap space heading into the offseason. That can, of course, be changed by manipulating the cap with some contract restructures and other transactions with this 49ers front office. So without further ado, let's begin our Niners perfect offseason plan. And really the biggest thing that they have to check off is figuring out the quarterback position. This is the biggest position in all of sports. It's the most important, and right now there are question marks at that spot for the San Francisco 49ers. Let's approach this as if Brock Purdy is going to be the starter just because of how much he played this year and how well he played as compared to Trey Lance. But with the elbow injury and the surgery, we're not sure how long he's going to be out. San Francisco saying this week they believe as of right now it's going to be that 6-month timetable. Kyle Shanahan did not say whether or not Purdy and Trey Lance are going to have a quarterback competition. So if they do, obviously it's Purdy and Trey Lance as the 2 quarterbacks who will be duking it out to be the 2023 starter. San Francisco did say this week with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch addressing the media after the season had ended that Jimmy Garoppolo will not be back. That's why there's an asterisk next to his name. As for Brock Purdy, let's talk about him real quick. I thought that he showed this year that he can run Kyle Shanahan's system, and Kyle Shanahan was very confident in him, as evidenced by his play calling, that Purdy can get the job done as distributing the football like a point guard, getting the ball out quickly, out accurately in space to allow these weapons to pick up yards after the catch, and he was pretty good with his decision making. As for what I like from Brock Purdy, I liked his timing, I liked his anticipation, his accuracy, athleticism, as well as his moxie. He's not large in stature. He doesn't have a bazooka for an arm, which going back to that elbow injury is a little bit of a concern, and because he's a little bit slight, how is he going to hold up if he is the starter, considering all of the injuries that have happened at quarterback under Kyle Shanahan's watch? As for how he fared this year, he really took the league by storm and was one of the more fascinating storylines in the National Football League and surprised everybody with his play and with his production. Completed 67% of his passes in the regular season, nearly 1,400 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 8.1 yards per completion. In the playoffs, completion percentage went down 2 percentage points, but I thought he was still pretty good. I mean, to combine in 8 games heading into the NFC Championship game for 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, that's a pretty good number for Mr. Irrelevant, 9 yards per completion during the playoffs. Now, we of course have to talk about Trey Lance at that quarterback spot, because Trey Lance has a ton of potential. 6'4", 225. He's a mobile quarterback. When he has had the opportunity to play, he's taken the top off of the defense. And if you go back to watch the small sample size of some of the impressive throws that he's made, he has a laser. And he's made some impressive plays. The problem with Trey Lance is his lack of experience. He's played and started 21 games combined going back to 2019 at North Dakota State. And since 2016, in a live setting, meaning a meaningful game, he has thrown a total of 420 passes. If San Francisco is worried about Brock Purdy's elbow and the development or lack thereof of Trey Lance, there are some quarterback trade targets out there who San Francisco could inquire about. It's headlined by Aaron Rodgers, who did say this week from Pebble Beach that he's, quote, not going to San Fran, but things can change quickly in this league. And was that basically Aaron Rodgers being witty, knowing that Levi's Stadium is in Santa Clara and not San Francisco? Okay, we'll see. Kirk Cousins. We know that him and Kyle Shanahan have a very good relationship going back to their days with the Washington Redskins. Lamar Jackson did sign on the franchise tag, but he could still be traded. Derek Carr said that he's not going back to the Raiders, and the Raiders are going to move on from him. And then we know that Kyle Shanahan has an infatuation with Mac Jones, but with the Patriots hiring Bill O'Brien to be their offensive coordinator, he could go back and stay in New England. There are some good backup quarterback options. And honestly, I think that the route that the Niners will go, and the most realistic route, you have Brock Purdy and Trey Lance on their rookie contracts. They're very affordable. You'll be able to continue to pay big-time dollars to some of the other premier players on this roster, but I do think it's very imperative, considering the elbow injury to Purdy, the lack of experience for Trey Lance, and bringing in a veteran would certainly help those two. But if they do have to start at some point, here are the top backup quarterback options: Jacoby Brissett, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Case Keenum, as well as Andy Dalton. Our first question of the day: if you could pick a starting quarterback for 2023, who would it be? Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, or if it's somebody else via a trade or in free agency? Let us know other by typing O and then listing us that name. Next up on the Niners' offseason plan, have to find a way to bolster this offensive line. It was good for much of the year, and honestly, the offensive line did exceed a lot of my expectations, but in the most meaningful of games, against the Dallas Cowboys and against the Philadelphia Eagles, San Francisco up front, they got jobbed. They got exposed. They got worked. And those are two really good defensive lines who you could see once again come playoff time. So that offensive line unit may have played well against inferior teams, and you may have been able to beat them thanks to Kyle Shanahan's scheme. But scheme doesn't win in the playoffs. Personnel does win in the playoffs. And this 49ers offensive line, when it mattered the most, was not good enough. Outside of Trent Williams and Mike McGlinchey, this offensive line moving forward a little bit suspect. Trent Williams with one of the highest Pro Football Focus grades in the sport at 91.7. Aaron Banks only gave up 1 sack this year, but Pro Football Focus gave him a grade of less than 63. League average is 70, by the way. Jake Brendel was a cool story, but San Francisco should try to find an upgrade at that center spot. 64.9 for him. Spencer Burford, I actually thought that with the eye test he played well for a rookie. Could he make a sizable leap into next year? 49.6 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus, is not good. And for Mike McGlinchey, this might surprise a lot of you, 71.5. As for Mike McGlinchey, spent a couple of moments talking about him. Mike McGlinchey is a controversial figure among the faithful. A lot of fans hate him. A lot of fans think that he sucks. But I'll tell you this right now, given that the salary cap is going to rise this year to astronomical levels in the National Football League in free agency, and considering the importance of finding a quality right tackle for a lot of teams who have suspect offensive lines across the league, Mike McGlinchey at the very least is going to get at least $15 million per year. It might sound crazy, but let's take a look at the numbers. Highest paid right tackles per year on an average annual value basis. Ryan Ramczyk of the New Orleans Saints, 19.2. Brian O'Neill, 18.5. Lane Johnson, 18 even. Braden Smith, $17.5 million per year. And then Taylor Moton, $17 million. Those numbers are going to continue to increase because the market is going to continue to expand and get a little bit more luxurious. So that's why Mike McGlinchey, given those contracts right here, is going to get at least $15 million. He could go up to $18 million now that the salary cap is going to go up. And with San Francisco, are they going to bring back Mike McGlinchey? They might not be able to afford that and afford him on the open market. So are they grooming Colton McKivitz? That could be the guy who's next in line to take over for McGlinchey. The Niners' philosophy of late, because they're paying big money to the likes of Trent Williams, Kyle Juszczyk, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, soon to be hopefully Brandon Ayuk. They don't invest a lot of money into the offensive line. Everybody else outside of Trent Williams on cheap deals, they're long-term veterans who come on the cheap, or they're on their rookie contracts. So with San Francisco having to improve that offensive line, I'd like to see this organization invest a little bit more into the trenches on the offensive side of the football. Now, if you're in the shoes of John Lynch, what would you do? Would you sign Mike McGlinchey and bring him back? R for re-sign, W for walk. Let us know down below in the comments section. Now, we have some breaking news here on the San Francisco 49ers report. What is that breaking news? Manscaped. They are now selling beard products. That's right. Our friends have gone from Balls Mafia to Beard Mafia in 2023 to keep you well-groomed from head to toe with their brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Producer Trace is all over it because for me, I kind of have a baby face, but I still use this. In this package, it all starts with the Beard Hedger. This cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel with 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard, so no more messy drawers full of extra add-ons. You can sculpt your beard to a championship level this season with the Super Bowl coming up around the corner with Manscaped, and tame your mane by heading to manscaped.com/49ers. Enter the promo code 49ers for 20% off and free shipping. Manscaped is the ultimate franchise player this playoff season to take your beard to the promised land with the new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. This package has made it easier than ever to craft your signature look and is a premium beard sculpting machine. So get 20% off and free shipping with our code 49ers at manscaped.com/49ers. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com by using the code 49ers. Other products, beard shampoo and conditioner, beard oil, and beard balm. For all my bearded bros out there, Manscaped has it covered on your face as well as all of their below-the-waist products as well. All right, next up on our Niners offseason plan, just like San Francisco has to bolster the offensive line, have to build up some depth at defensive tackle. This Philadelphia Eagles offensive line, which is the best in football in the NFC Championship game, straight up bullied this Niners offensive line. And Javon Kinlaw, up to this point, has been a sizable bust for the Niners since being a first-round pick out of South Carolina in 2020. And for Javon Kinlaw here, he just simply has to play better. 45 tackles in 24 career games, 3 tackles for loss, 5 quarterback hits, a sack and a half. He was supposed to be the guy who was going to fill in at defensive tackle after the Niners had traded away DeForest Buckner to be that next quality interior defensive lineman. He's been anything but that. So now you're looking at defensive tackle depth, and you're looking at tackle options for San Francisco. It's the offensive line and the defensive line, very imperative for the Niners. And going back to that McGlinchey talking point, top free agent tackles here, Mike McGlinchey is the second best one available. That's why he's going to get paid behind George Fant, Billy Turner, Caleb McGarry, and Jawan James. Going back to defensive tackle now, because I do believe that you build your football organizations along the trenches, offensive and defensive lines, in addition to finding that quarterback. I thought that on the cheap, Hassan Ridgeway was a good pickup for the Niners. He was good before that pec injury landed him on season-ending reserve. The Niners can address defensive tackle in the draft. They did last year with Kalia Davis, but he wasn't able to play coming off that torn ACL. Is he going to be an option? Could somebody else step up? Do they go after somebody in free agency? All options for the Niners, but they have to get better at defensive tackle because Eric Armstead is very good. Outside of that, right defensive tackle is certainly a problem. I do want to ask you a macro question here. Overall, entire offseason for this football team, what is this team's biggest need? We want to hear from the faithful down in the comment section. Now let's move forward with our perfect offseason plan. Nick Bosa wore down at the end of the season and in the playoffs. Didn't have a sack against Philadelphia, didn't even have a quarterback hit. Didn't have a sack in the game prior against the Dallas Cowboys. He was somewhat silent against the Seahawks. And the last 2 regular season games, Cardinals, Raiders, Nick Bosa wasn't getting after the quarterback like he did throughout much of the regular season. Is that because he started to wear down because teams were able to chip block him, double team him, and much of the focus from the opposing offensive line was on number 97 because nobody else on the other side really stepped up? I think so to a certain degree. This is the Defensive Player of the Year, in my opinion. Nick Bosa is the best pass rusher in all of football. Back-to-back years, he's combined for 15.5 sacks and 18.5 sacks. But get this man some help so that you can have some longevity with him. He's a physical freak of nature, but he's also human. He's not the bionic man. Get somebody else to help him out to conserve him so that he's right and primed to go for the playoffs. He was that last year against the Cowboys, against the Packers, and against the Los Angeles Rams, but I thought he did wear down just a bit. Speaking of Nick Bosa, going to be really important for the Niners to sign Nick Bosa to a contract extension. They exercised his 5th-year option, so he is set to make $18.5 million in the final year of his deal here in 2023. But Nick Bosa could be in line for a massive, massive payday, considering that in 2021 he had 15.5 sacks. And in 2022, he set his own personal record with 18.5 sacks. And the going rate for some of the premier defensive players in the sport is going to continue to rise as the NFL salary cap continues to increase. Nick Bosa could honestly set the record for the highest contract and dollar figures per year for any defender that we've seen in the history of the NFL because that's what the market dictates. Aaron Donald last year set the record at $31.5 million. I think he's going to definitely get more than TJ Watt at $28 million because I believe that Bosa is better than him. He's better than his brother Joey Bosa at $27 million even. And then I think he has the edge slightly on Myles Garrett as well as Max Crosby. Especially Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, you can make the argument he's certainly one of the best edge rushers, if not the best edge rushers in the sport. Top free agent defensive ends to maybe help out Nick Bosa. Here's the problem. Not a lot of depth at that position. Yannick Ngakoue is a really good player. I'd love to see him rocking that scarlet, red, and gold. He's somewhat young as well. Brandon Graham is 34 years old, coming off a career high in sacks with 11, but he's a longtime Philadelphia Eagle legend. I don't see him going anywhere else. Marcus Davenport had 9 sacks last year, but this past year he wasn't good and was also a little bit banged up. And speaking of the lack of depth at that defensive end spot in free agency, Samson Ebukam is the top 5 edge rusher in this class, followed by Jadeveon Clowney, who's played a lot in a 3-4 defense, but can also play that 4-3. But you already know he's already going to miss the first couple of weeks of training camp because that's what he does. As for internal options for the Niners, Can Drake Jackson be that guy to help out Nick Bosa along the defensive line? He was drafted in the second round of the 2022 NFL draft to do just that, and I thought early in the season he showed flashes of being a really good player because at USC, they didn't really use him under Clay Helton to his maximum capabilities within that Trojans defense. With San Francisco, they have the best defensive line coach in the NFL in Chris Kosaric, who hopefully stays on this coaching staff. And in this defense under D'Amico Ryans this past year, Drake Jackson looked really good, showed a lot of flashes of being that guy who can help out and aid Nick Bosa on the other side of that defensive line. But Kyle Shanahan admitted that as the season progressed, and he's a rookie, he's never played this much football in his life, he started to wear down physically and didn't quite have the same amount of speed, explosiveness, and power. He did play in 15 games this year, was inactive for 2, did register 3 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, 9 hurries, and 16 pressures. But I think San Francisco would be wise to build up the depth at defensive tackle, build up the depth at defensive end, continue to give Drake Jackson a lot of opportunities, but bring in another good edge rusher so that they can run a little bit of a rotation, especially to keep Nick Bosa healthy and fresh. All right. Figure out the secondary, another component for this team that San Francisco has to do and lock down. So these 2 players here, they've been with this organization for a little while, and they've been with this organization so long that they've been able to change jerseys. Like this is a couple years ago, Emmanuel Mosley before changing to 4, Jimmy Ward before changing to number 1. The big question with Emmanuel Mosley and Jimmy Ward, who are 2 very, very good players, can San Francisco afford Emmanuel Mosley, who last year did not give up a touchdown in coverage and this year was playing stellar football prior to tearing his ACL? How is the ACL injury going to dictate his market, and how is it going to affect it? Is he going to get a Charvarius Ward deal where he can make $14 to $16 million at a position that teams are desperate for because they need cornerback help in a pass-happy NFL? Or will he take a 1-year prove-it deal to try to cash in on a larger contract and stay on this Niners defense? For Jimmy Ward, he didn't really like being moved to nickel and slot cornerback because he's traditionally a safety. But I actually think that playing safety and showing that you can play nickel and in the slot and cover some of the top-tier wide receivers in this league, thus added to his value. And now he's going to be able to make $14, $16 million potentially and cash in perhaps one last time in his NFL career as he's already, 30, 31 years old. I'd like to bring them both back. It's all going to come down to the price tag. Special teams. Also very important for a team's success in terms of trying to win a Super Bowl, winning a division. This can win you and lose you games, and Robbie Gould set to be a free agent. He did say this week he has no plans of retiring. He wants to play football for a while longer because he has plenty of gas left in the tank, and how can you deny that? This guy continues to be money and as good as gold when the games matter the most. 29 for 29 on field goal attempts in his playoff career. And kicker is a position that can be very fickle. If you don't have a good one and you're scrambling to find one and you lose a couple of games because your kicker can't knock through the ball and get them through the uprights, that can be the difference between having a good seeding, having a home playoff game, home field advantage, or just being out of the playoffs and not winning the division. I'd like to bring Robbie Gould back, and I kind of pay him what he wants to get paid as far as kickers go. With all of these positions here, I know San Francisco doesn't have a first-round pick or a second-round pick. The good news is they have 11 picks total. And at these positions of importance and other positions elsewhere on this roster, San Francisco can find quality players in the NFL draft. And San Francisco has done a great job of finding guys on day 2 and day 3 who have been able to be affordable players and impact players. Here's a look at the 49ers 2023 NFL draft picks. They have a 3rd-round comp pick thanks to Marty Mayhew going to Washington, Robert Saleh to the Jets. 3rd-round comp pick because Mike McDaniel went to the Dolphins as part of the Rooney Rule and minority hires. 3rd-round comp pick because Rand Carthon went to Tennessee. D'Amico's is going to be in 2025, by the way. 5th-round pick, and a 5th-round pick. And then here's where it starts to get a little bit hairy. But look, you got Talanoa Hufanga late. You got Elijah Mitchell late. You got Brock Purdy with the final pick of the draft. You can find, if your scouting department does its job, some pretty good players here. 6th-round comp pick and then 4 picks in that 7th round for the Niners. So if you're excited for the offseason, obviously I'm going to be in Arizona for Super Bowl week, giving you coverage from the Super Bowl Radio Row. Going to have some great guests as well as some great content and continue to cover all these offseason storylines. I'm pumped up about that. It'd be ideal if we were talking about the Niners being in the Super Bowl, but the offseason is where you can put yourself in a position to win next year's Super Bowl. So if you're excited for it all, I want you to spam 49 down in the comment section. As always, we appreciate all of you for watching, and make sure you subscribe because this is your go-to spot for all things Niners every single day.